Hello and welcome to another MOC showcase on the Bricks and Bits channel, this one being about what I consider to be my favorite MOC, which is the Saint Brick Hospital. This measures 1.5 base plates, and I have taken some inspiration from the Panlo's Magical Sanctuary set. Panlo's being one of those Chinese knockoff brands where they have copied the Marvel Sanctum Sanctorum, which is why the working title for this one was Sanctum Hospital, but I think I'm much happier with a newer name. I actually got that as a gift from my cousin. She ordered some lamps from a shady Chinese website and was sent this behemoth of a set, which I will link down below. She couldn't send it back, and I guess that's China for you. I gladly took it off her hands. Now, we will firstly do a review of the outside and then check out the inside. Starting at the bottom right here with a parking spot for the ambulance. This one being part of an older set, but I felt obligated to include this one since it was part of a gift from a couple of friends of mine. Even though there are nicer ambulances out nowadays, this parking spot is specifically designed for that vehicle. You have some figures who are about to visit their relatives with some gifts in hand. There's a nice little sticker from a retired set called Helicopter Rescue, which served as an inspiration for my first draft of a hospital. Yeah, you will never see that first draft again. That's an abandoned project. I'm kind of ashamed now, but I've showed that on the channel once before. Here's a nice little technique for windows. These are trans blue panel pieces facing each other, and that's some nice change from the regular windows we get. Here's a poor little clumsy guy who just left the hospital. Behind him there are these doors that are taken from the Magical Sanctuary set, and also a nice change from what we are used to with Lego. I want to highlight a nice technique here with this poor guy who seems to have had an accident at work. Did you know that this fit? You can just take this old fence piece, stick it through this leg piece, and attach the upper body just like that for a nice little effect. I love it. I finished off the first floor with this plate with a rail attached that goes all along the ground floor, and it's these little details that make all the difference. Continuing our look further up the facade, you have a really nice contrast between this medium nougat and light bluish grey here to give the building a nice antique feeling to it. That's kind of how I imagine it, as an old building that has been refurbished and modernized to a modern hospital to fit modern standards and needs. Also, before you notice, I want to point out myself that I just realized that I'm off center here. I've built this thing in early 2023, I've just noticed that, and it drives me up the wall. I gotta fix that in the near future. I want to highlight another technique that I've used to fit these curved tiles here over the window. Normally, these rounded off windows are combined with this arched brick because they just fit so nicely. However, I wanted to get some more out of the window design, so I made use of my Lego engineering skills and came up with this technique here, these brackets that hold these tiles that fit perfectly over this shape. Finishing the exterior part of the building would be this nice rooftop with a kind of mandatory helipad to the right here. This helicopter is also part of the helicopter rescue set that I've mentioned earlier, from which I've taken the sticker, and the helipad was designed with this helicopter specifically in mind. The red H indicates here where it has to land. You also have your air conditioning units up here to the left. Here's the elevator shaft. We'll talk about the elevator a little bit later on. And also, you have a nice antenna here for communication purposes. Starting our look at the interior here with the ambulance parking spot. That's where you have your two paramedics waiting for the next emergency call underneath these neon lights. They are playing cards right now. You also have your octane style fuel tank for when the ambulance runs out of gas. I don't know how realistic that really is. And you also have your agreed upon technique for a fire extinguisher here. You also have a nice ramp to allow the stretchers to be taken up there easier. You have a surveillance camera here, a nice rounded off window here to the side. Also, while building, I've decided to not go for an enclosed wall here. This is an open wall with a nice shape to it to kind of lose this feeling of being too enclosed or too cramped. Just behind the main entrance you have this tiny little reception here, for which I've taken some inspiration from a real-life hospital very close to me. You have a tiny little door here, which the employee can use to get in there, and you have a display up here to indicate which patient's turn it is to get their treatment now. Behind this sliding door here, you have the tiniest emergency room ever, which we'll take a look in now. For me personally, this emergency room here kind of shows one of the drawbacks of doing your designs digitally, because when building a digital version of this, it kind of seemed bigger than this. At last, it's really small and I kind of have to live with it, and I will struggle now to show you every bit of it. Here's your little card for the emergency room with some supplies in it and on it. There's a little part where you can sanitize your hands. You can barely see it, but here's an X-ray display, probably for this patient here. Also, I have to highlight real quick what this patient is all about. Get it? It's a fractured arm. You can easily achieve this look by just attaching a right arm to the left side and boom, fractured limb. With the figures out of the way, you can get a better look at the surgical table here. You have these lights up top, which is a nice technique, very flimsy though. And you have your oxygen dispenser here at the wall. Another downside of digitally designing your MOCs before you build them is that you don't know how any moving parts would really work in real life. For example, these elevator shaft doors, which look amazingly realistic, and the app said that they could be easily opened like this, but in real life, yeah, they just break apart, as you can see here. Highlighting the technique of this amazing mess here, you can see that I worked with Technic bricks and just pins that they are attached to. Obviously wouldn't work. Hindsight always helps. This elevator shaft here also shows you that I've taken this lift from the town hall set, which is perfect for this purpose. However, I have sized that up a bit to fit the stretchers and hospital beds that we will take a look at a bit later. Turning the camera around to the other side, next to the entrance you have your waiting area, where the patients are waiting for their turn. This guy doesn't seem to be doing too hot. On the other side of this entrance there's your cafeteria, selling coffee and some pastries. Or just an indication of a cafeteria really. You know, with Lego, everything's always just an indication, because fitting a real cafeteria in here would just take up all the space. There's also some magazines for sale, looks like some child magazines as well. Here's a shot of the entire first floor. We'll take a look at each and every room individually. We'll start on the left here with the elevator shaft. You will notice that I have abandoned the idea of the door I used in the ground floor for good reason. You've seen why. Starting the tour of the first floor, I want to talk about this MRI scanner first. You can easily slide this figure in here. I got some inspiration for this from the Bricks channel, awesome guy, but the design for this MRI scanner is entirely mine. I will show you that now. So for this MRI scanner, which has a display here, I wanted to go for a design that is both sturdy and also has a nice round shape to it. I experimented with a lot of bricks until I got the idea to just attach these rounded tiles with some brackets. The frame itself is completely not sturdy and very flimsy, but these rounded tiles just hold it together very, very well. Separating the room with the MRI scanner to the right here and the X-ray chamber to the left would be this monitoring room here in the middle. Here you have the X-ray chamber. The design for the X-ray is taken from Bricks because it just works so very well. The figure can have its X-rays taken lying down and in standing position. Also note the red and green lights to indicate which room is currently occupied. Across the hall from the elevator shaft, you have this employee here analyzing blood samples and tissue samples in this laboratory here next to this freezing chamber and this microscope here to his left. Next to the laboratory here would be the baby ward right here with 2 incubators and the cutest little Lego babies. At the end of the hall there would be your operating room. I took a lot of the interior from the Blue Bricks Hospital, which came out I think in early 2023. A friend of mine has that set and it's amazing. In here you also have your employee with a much more elaborate medical card than we had in the ER in the bottom floor. Another angle into the operating room reveals some more shelving units here and a sink to wash your hands before surgery. We don't live in the 1500s anymore. I also love this little scene here of this guy who seems to have some second thoughts on his surgery. Taking a look into the final floor here, that's where you have your actual nursing with your patients' rooms right here, and also a doctor's room for appointments and such. And here's the administration part of the entire hospital. As with all the other rooms, this office here for the administration is also very cramped, very tiny and narrow. These two administrators here are working tirelessly, as you can see, with all the paperwork stacked on their table. I would also like to point out the technique for the filing cabinet here, where I've used some plates and modified bricks to make it seem like the drawers stick out and they are full of paperwork. The doctor is in. Next to the administration part of the hospital, that's where you would have your doctor's office for counseling and just general meeting before surgery and just get some general information from him. There's also a printed tile here with an x-ray indicating what this patient is suffering from. There's also a little stretcher here on the edge. Taking a look into the first patient's room here of the hospital, that's where you have two beds. These beds are derived from the technique used in the Blue Bricks hospital set. I've narrowed this down a bit. This figure here, this woman, she's sleeping right now. Actually, the face is from a singing minifigure, but I thought that it's also great for a sleeping figure. The picture on the wall there, the print is from the now retired video line, even though that wasn't totally my thing as well. They gave us some great prints and I got a bunch of those before they retired because they are awesome as just a painting on every wall. I've switched the angle here to give you a better look into the intensive care unit of the hospital. That's where you have two additional hospital beds and some monitoring devices, also a curtain to separate the beds from each other. This guy, who seems to be recovering from surgery or such, he seems to be receiving a blood transfusion right now. On the walls, there's also some more oxygen supply here. Last but not least, here's a look at the nurse's table that's also standing in the hallway. Believe it or not, but documentation and paperwork is almost half the job of working in care, and I know all too well I work in care myself, even though I do it in a mobile setting. There's also a shelving unit or cupboards here to store medical equipment and such. So that concludes the tour of my St. Brick Hospital here. I hope you liked it. I know I had a lot of fun planning and designing and building this one because it was a long-time passion project of mine. I work as a nurse for the elderly, and as part of my training I even worked in a hospital for a short period of time, and I have the utmost respect for everyone working in the healthcare sector. They truly keep the country running. If you like this video, do the YouTube thing, leave a thumbs up, subscribe, and all the good stuff. I will hopefully see you in the next one, where we will have a couple of more MOC showcases and a couple of more city updates. Until then, goodbye.